Okay, hello people. This is going to be the Mario Kart 64 One Try League finals between Matthias and Jaden. I'm joined here by one of the players from the league, who is Mr. Pitt.
Hello, guys.
So that's Mr. Pitt. So this will be starting shortly. I'll just let players know that they're ready. So, Mr. Pitt, you were part of a league. So do you want to give just a quick breakdown of what it was and
Yep.
how it's going to work?
Alright. Well, I was in 20th place, but I still had fun doing it. Basically, they'll go head-to-head to each other in a 1v1 trials mode. They'll only do one single try per single track. No ghosts allowed, no pausing during the attempts. Each track decides who wins the points. A match lasts until one player wins 3 sets. Best of 5, each set is first 4 tracks, best of 7. And the tracks are not randomly, the players will decide in which tracks they chose.
So in this match, Matthias is going to have the first choice of track. The players will alternate. The same track can't be picked by both players within the same set, and within the first 2 sets, players cannot pick a track that they've already picked. And it's non-shortcut rules, so you won't be seeing any of this jumping over walls, clipping out of bounds, with the exception of one wildcard joker each per match, where players can say that the track will be shortcut. By making a track shortcut, it allows it to be picked twice in a set, or again by another player. It essentially counts as a completely different track. And it looks like the 2 players are ready to go, so the easiest way to see what happens is just to watch it. So Matthias has picked Moo Farm, and they'll be going in just a few seconds. I might need to do some resyncing. Okay, I'm just going to resync now. Okay, so Moo Farm is a fairly complicated track. It has very uneven ground, which is very difficult to drive on, as well as moles which randomly appear out of holes. So driving over a molehill, it's roughly 50-50 on a complete RNG whether the mole will pop up and kill you or not. So both going through fairly clean. Matthias is the world #1 in non-shortcut, so he should have a slight advantage in driving speed. Jaden's had a very quick rise in the last couple of years. He's now up to 16th in the world in the time trials non-shortcut. But on this track, I'd probably say that Matthias is likely to have maybe something like a 1 second advantage, but they're driving closer than that. Matthias is clean, but Jaden's having a fantastic race so far. So each track is 3 laps. Each player gets 3 shrooms. On some tracks, the shroom is only worth about 0.3 if you can't cut any off-road. On tracks where you can cut off-road, the shroom can be worth anything up to about a second. So we have a 1, 27, 93 versus a 128. 41, so that's going to be the first point to Matthias. I've got a slow track. Okay, it looks like I've got a little bit of audio problems. Let me see if I can get back in. For some reason it's showing me as muted. Hopefully you guys can all hear me fine though. Hopefully it's just a Discord issue with the co-commentary. Okay, so the next track is going to be Calamari Desert, chosen by Jaden. This track is particularly difficult for the train. So there's two trains which go around on a cycle. There's 2 crossing points each lap. Generally, the trains are only going to be an issue on the last lap, perhaps. So both players going for the hilltop start, where actually Matthias going for the hilltop start, Jaden going for a shroom start. So I think the safest strat is probably something like a 2-0-1 or a 1-1-1 in terms of shroom usages per lap. With Matthias, I expect we might see... Well, 1-1-1 would be risky for Matthias because he'll catch up to the train. I don't know whether he's going to want to be going between the train wheels or not. Let's see if I can get... Okay, so coming up to the second crossing on lap 2. Again, train's not going to be an issue. Matthias is holding on to his shrooms. Looks like he's going for 2 shrooms on the last lap. Whereas Jaden's going for a rather safer 1 shroom on the last lap. So by holding on to 2 shrooms, what's going to make it easier for Matthias to get past this first train coming up. Jaden, having used 2 shrooms, shouldn't be too bothered by the back of it. No, he's through fine. So they're roughly equal, but Matthias has an extra shroom in hand. So, barring crashing his shroom into the wall, this should be a win for Matthias. So the extra shroom there. Shrooms here are worth roughly 1 second per lap, because you cut a large section of off-road with them. So by having an extra shroom on the last lap, that should give Matthias about a 1 second win here. The 2:05.34, 2:06.83, 2:06. So that is now 2-0 to Matthias in terms of tracks in the first set. Apologise for my slightly clicky keyboard. I have to type the times in, so. So these 2 players were in different divisions in the One Try League. Matthias came through Division 1. I believe he won all 13 of his matches. Jaden came through Division 2. He won 12 and lost 1. The only match he lost, I believe, was an interdivisional match against Matthias. So these 2 players have played each other in the group stages. They went into the finals as the 1 and 2 seeds from the group stages. Matthias had a semi-final against the world number 2, Dan Burbank, and came through that. And Jaden, I believe his semi-final was against a young Canadian player called the Young Gun, or TYG as we call him, and he came through that. So they're meeting in the final. It was a slightly lopsided knockout round. Okay, sorry. Players wanting to go for the next track, which is going to be Toad's Turnpike. So the main problem or obstacles on Toad's Turnpike is going to be the traffic. There's cars and buses driving along. Even harder if you play it in the extra mode where they drive towards you, but Time Trials doesn't do that, so it's not too bad. Just see if we can resync slightly. So yeah, the brackets were slightly lopsided. One half of the brackets, the one which Matthias came through, had the world's number 1, 2 and 3 players in himself, Dan Burbank and Beck Abney. I believe Dan beat Beck in the quarterfinals, then Matthias beat Dan in the semi-finals. So, bit of a bloodbath on that side of the draw, but in the end Matthias came through. I think Jayden probably had a slightly easier half in the knockout rounds, with no top 10 players in the world in it. I think he was probably the highest by quite a margin. Ooh. See Jayden there shrooming into the wall, which essentially loses that shroom. Thankfully on this track shrooms aren't worth huge amounts, probably about 0.3 of a second per shroom, because you're not cutting any off-road sections with them. So at the moment Matthias has a pretty decent lead here, probably about a second. So Mr. Pitt, did you enjoy the One Try League?
Yeah, I did. I went against a couple people, Beck Abney and others. I tried to do my best. I did have some complications with the last couple matches because I couldn't do it because of a family moving issue. But other than that, it was very fun. Even if I didn't get very high on the board, it was still an amazing event.
Yeah, I've played One Tries versus a number of the top players at the yearly Euro meets. We have a meet every summer in Europe. There's also a corresponding meet in America where they focus on the 4-player versus. But in the Euro meet we do a time trial competition one day, and Matthias just wins it every single year. I mean, he just doesn't make many mistakes, and when you've got somebody who can drive faster than pretty much anybody else, who also doesn't make any mistakes, or very few mistakes, it makes it very, very, very difficult to beat him. And in terms of our traditional one-try tournament, I don't think anybody has beaten him yet. He did get beaten in a one-try last man standing competition by Dan Burbank back in, I think, 2015 Euro meet. But other than that, he pretty much wins every single year, every single event. 259.13 versus 302.09, so that's going to give Matthias a 3-0 lead. Just going to pop those scores in. So that takes Matthias to set point in the first set. It's going to be Jayden's pick. So let's see what he goes for. Jayden's going to go for DKJP. A dangerous track. You've got a ramp over a river where if you try and take it a little bit too sharp, go for a bit too much, you can end up in the water and lose absolute masses of time. And there's also the cave jump, or the cave climb at the end, which also, if you try and take that a little bit too tight, a little bit too sharp, you can tumble down in the cave and lose masses of time again. So I'm thinking Matthias on a one try, if everything goes well, probably looking at a time something like a 2:14. I don't know how good Jayden's one tries are on DKJP. But again, I say looking at a time like a 2:14. If something goes wrong, it can go wrong in a big, big way. You see winning times at like 2 minutes 30 on this track sometimes. Safe jump by Matthias. And Jayden, unfortunately, went a little too far to the left, and at least he got put down on the correct side. Usually when you miss that jump, you'll be put down back on the ramp and have to go over again. Sometimes if you kind of land high enough when you fall in, you will be put down on the correct side. That's going to give a massive lead to Matthias at the end of the first lap. So 44.86. So it looks like about a 9-second lead to Matthias after lap 1. Matthias again is going to land fine on that one. So shrooming across this grass, you're looking to only get hit by 2 of the stones. If you get hit by a third, it's a bit slower, but again, they're not going for world records here. And Jayden again into the water, and again gets put down on the correct side. So given what we saw on lap 1, that looks like another 9 seconds is going to be lost. I see the chat doesn't like that I call them stones. That's what the instruction manual calls them. I'll go by what's in the instruction manual. It refers to angry natives throwing stones. I mean, in our youth we used to always call them coconuts, or some people refer to them as some other kind of fruit which is common in some of the Mario games.
Yeah.
But the instruction manual calls them stones or rocks. So this is going to be the first set to Matthias. He's driven a pretty smooth, clean DKJP. Let's see if he can get sub 215. Yeah, pretty easily. So Matthias with a 214.37, and Jayden for his merit is going to finish. For all he knows, Matthias could have had an even worse experience than he did. I do like it when players finish and don't just give up after the first big mistake. That's a 2:37.23. So, Matthias takes the first set, 4 tracks to nil. Moving to the second set. As a reminder, players can't pick a track that they've already picked in the first set during the second set. That rule will reset after the second set, and players will have a clean pack of tracks to pick from. Both players have not used their joker yet, so they can both call out a shortcut track at any point. Mr. Pitt, did you use your joker when you were playing in the one tries?
I used it most of the time. There was only a couple where I didn't use it, or like I didn't use it, or it was just no point in using it because I know I had a better shot at some people.
Yeah, so I think for Matthias there's probably little point him using his joker. Being the world #1 in non-shortcut doesn't really make sense for him to turn a track into shortcut. For Jayden, I think if he wants to get a track on the board, using his shortcut joker pick will be a very good move for him. Especially if he's been practicing one, and I know he's been playing quite a few shortcut tracks in time trials this week. I've seen a number of PRs from him on Frappy Snowland. I saw him play Mario Raceway earlier. I don't think Frappy Snowland shortcut would be a good pick for him though, because I know it's one of the ones which Matthias quite likes as well. So we're going on to Royal Raceway. So the loser of the previous set has first pick in the following set, so this is Jayden's pick this time. See how they go. Okay, looks like Matthias' stream is just a tiny fraction ahead. Yeah, that's better. So the hardest part of Royal Raceway is probably what we call the wall jump, or the grass cut coming up here. Trying to get as close to that wall as possible. Some people use a 2-hop strat, some people use a 3-hop strat. I personally prefer the 2-hop, but if you get it wrong you can get turned around facing the wrong direction completely. Both players will use 1 shroom per lap in this section here, and you'll see them charging an MT over the ramp and releasing it just as they leave back onto the track. This jump here, it's possible to go bouncing at the end of it. I'm not entirely sure what causes it. It's a lot more common in 150cc GP. There's all types of myths amongst the players as to how to avoid it happening. I'm not entirely sure if any of them are proven to be true. So each set is best of 7 tracks, so it's 4 tracks to win a set, and the match is best of 3 sets. So 3 sets to win the match, and 4 tracks to win a set. It is possible for players to get exact times and have a tie within sets. In that case, the tracks are essentially taken as being null and void, and they just move on as if it didn't happen. I think that's happened 3 times so far in this league.
Yeah, it was 3.
So Matthias is basically showing his non-shortcut prowess here. I'm not entirely sure what the difference between the 2 players' PRs are, but I'd expect it to be in a region of about 2 seconds. It's quite a long track, so Matthias's kind of world #1 level driving will get a chance to shine here. Basically, I think the longer the track, the better it is for Matthias, especially if it's simple tracks. Hopefully we won't see him picking Rainbow Road, because that is near 6 minutes of snooze fest essentially, but it would be one where he would be almost certainly guaranteed the win. So barring Matthias finding the water on the final turn, this is going to be first track of the second set to Matthias. He's going to come around with a 252 57. And Jaden with a 255.29. You can't hear anything. When you say you can't hear anything, you're talking game sounds? Sorry, just or... Okay. Let me see if I can boost that up. Okay, I'm going to boost myself up. I'm going to boost up Mr. Pitt. Make sure that don't have anything muted. Boost up Matthias's volume. Okay, let me know if that's any better for you. I've boosted every volume I have. So, next track's going to be Frappy Snowland. So this is Matthias's pick. I believe he's currently the only player in the world to have a sub 2 minute time on this track, which is quite ridiculous, really. So, Mr. Pitt, have you done much time trialing recently?
I currently was just doing some beforehand. Was doing a couple of shortcuts.
You've moved to the dark side.
Yes, I'm just the board. My shortcuts are close to top 100, so I'm just trying to get those up.
Yeah, I play shortcuts occasionally. I just don't submit them to the site.
Yeah, I send mine a little too late sometimes.
I just don't really want a shortcut. That's a bit more. A shortcut timesheet. I'm not a huge fan. I think if I start doing shortcuts, I'll get dragged into doing all of them, and I don't really want to be grinding DKJP shortcut 3-lap and things like that. So the shroom here is the big danger part of this track. Both make it over fine. Both miss the snowman. The snowmen are quite explosive on this track. If you drive into them, they explode. Not sure why snowmen explode, but it's a feature. There's another danger on this track, which is the bridge right at the end. If you hop at the wrong time, you can actually fall through the seam of it into the water below. So we're looking for them to avoid the snowman, not get stuck out of bounds on the shroom jump, and not fall through the bridge. Okay, Matthias. Oh, he got hung up. So they're now neck and neck. So there's a safer way of taking that jump, which is to hop at the end. It's slightly faster just to shroom without hopping when you do that jump, but there is a danger that if you just mistime it ever so slightly, you can do what Matthias did there and kind of get the back of your cart stuck on the back of the hill. So it's still very close, but slightly to Matthias. But it looks like it's probably going to come down to this last shroom. Matthias is clean this time. Jayden's clean as well. Looks like Matthias has a couple of tenths lead here. Needs to avoid hitting the walls. Just steer the MT over the line. That's a 201.67. This is a 202.31. So that's 2 tracks to 0 to Matthias in this second set, with Matthias leading by 1 set to 0. Okay, so the next pick. Okay, just waiting for the next pick. Apparently Jayden switched controllers. Saying he had to get used to it in the middle of a run. Okay, just waiting on Jayden's pick. Okay, Jayden's saying Wario Stadium. Oh, I think I shot the gun on that start. Bit of a false start there, so they'll be starting up again shortly. I see we're joined in chat by VAJ, a legend of the game. I think he's world number 5 or 6 in non-shortcut, world number 2 in shortcut. Let's just start these players off. Okay, so Wario Stadium is another long track. You're talking, for this level of skill, probably something like a 4:22, 4:23 time, probably from Matthias. Jayden probably looking more like a 4:25, 4:26 on a one try. If everything goes correct, that is. But these tracks do have their dangers. So it's very easy to snag into a wall or slightly mistime a jump and tumble off a wall, which would lose a lot of time. But again, with Matthias's skill and level of play, if you're relying on him making a mistake, it's not the best of strategies. But to be honest, in all fairness to Jayden, he's a very, very good player, but he really does need Matthias to make mistakes to really have much chance on most of these tracks. Matthias isn't world number 1 for no reason, and he's been number 1 now for something like 6 or 7 years in non-shortcut. I think at one point he held 31 out of 32 of the non-shortcut world records. Whereas Jayden's recently been climbing up the charts. I think he came into the game probably about a couple of years ago. He had quite a swift rise to around top 40, top 50 in the world, and took a bit of time out, came back last year, and he's now up to 16th in the world, and still progressing, still PRing regularly. Yes, VAJ says Jayden's the future. Also players like Smurfy, who's been kind of climbing the charts along with him. Those two kind of really pushing each other on. And a few others, I think Climati and Lars have been having great runs recently too. And that's not to say that Matthias is unchallenged at the top. Dan Burbank's been fighting him kind of tooth and nail the last few years. They've been trading a lot of world records between them, and Beck as well. Beck's the #1 shortcut player in the world, but he also is capable of popping up with non-shortcut world records, you know, quite regularly. So at the moment, Matthias's driving is just taking him out to a bit of a lead here, which is to be expected. Jaden's kind of hanging in quite well though. Looks like there's about a second and a half or so between them. So you'll notice the players are doing what we call MTs, or mini turbos, probably every 2 or 3 seconds. So where they toggle the control stick, you'll move the smoke from grey to yellow to red. You release it and you get a small boost. Unlike some Mario Kart games, the best strat is not to just empty. You get a speed boost while you're not moving the stick. So once you've got the re-empty, if you release it, we do what's called a glide. So you glide for a second and a half, 2 seconds on a straight before going into the next empty, just to maximise the speed gain from it. Ooh. Bit of a wall hit from Matthias there. Jaden's still a couple of seconds back though. So it's not been a flawless race by Matthias, but in general he's just so fast he can afford to make a few small mistakes. But any big mistake, like getting hung up on this wall in this section here, it's probably the last big danger avoided now by Matthias. So this is the grand final of the MK64 One Try League. I believe the group stages started in September, is that correct?
Should be.
So it's been running for about 4 months now, and there was 23 people who took part in various stages, although I think one of them dropped out.
Yeah, VAJ. Yep.
So it's a 4:23.04. This is a 4:25. That's a very good one try time from Jaden, actually, 4:25. If you're wondering why they're playing the finals so early, it's because Jaden's from Australia. So what is very early for people on one side of the Atlantic is probably very late for one of our players over the other side of the Pacific. Matthias is European based over in Germany, so it's a Germany versus Australia final going on here. Shortcuts are generally not allowed. Each player is allowed to pick a single shortcut track in the entire competition. Entire match between them. So at the moment, neither player has used their shortcut pick, so both players still can go to a shortcut pick at one point, but in general, unless it's using that specific shortcut pick, then shortcuts, tricks, glitches, warps and things aren't allowed. So Matthias is going for Bowser Castle. So the main obstacle in Bowser Castle are the thwomps. Most of the thwomps are on a global cycle. The only exception is 2 of them in the first hallway, which follow the cart. So those 2 will essentially chase after the cart when you enter the hallway. All the others are on a global cycle. So as long as the players don't make any big mistakes, they should know roughly where they are in relation to the thwomps. It's when you make a mistake and you kind of get off cycle and don't know where the thwomps are going to be that this track becomes very, very, very difficult. So both through the thwomps nicely on lap 1. Jaden not getting the MT down the stairs. So probably one of the most swag MTs in the game. Although it's not pure swag, it is actually faster. It's just probably the most satisfying one to get, because it's such a tight little build-up. So Matthias takes through lap 1 in 44.53. He's about 0.9 of a second ahead of Jayden at the end of lap 1. Bit of a wall hit will cost Matthias a tenth or two. So those swamps are fairly easy, and in this room they should be quite nice too. It's lap 3 where they can get a bit complicated, especially in the final room. Especially if you're not entirely sure what pace you're on. So for Matthias, I expect he'll probably be going for a 2:14. That's usually what he does in one tries. I don't know if he sometimes sneaks into the 2:13s, but it should be a 2:14. Jayden kind of hanging in a second or so behind him. Okay, this is where the swamps can be dangerous. Fine for Matthias, and fine 3 for Jayden. Oh, Matthias! Ooh, that's bringing it a lot closer. That could have been a lot worse for Matthias if he'd got hung up in the corner. He was kind of quite lucky to be able to bounce off the wall and get straight back onto the track. So that's going to make the race a lot closer than it was going to be. So 2:14.63, 2:15.13. That was a lucky escape, shall we say, on that track for Matthias. That is enough for him to take the second set and take a 2-0 lead over Jayden. Yeah, it wasn't just a quick recovery, it was kind of a bit of a lucky bounce as well. Like if he'd been just a tiny bit more to the right, he'd have been stuck in that corner, and it would have been race over on that one.
Yeah, I think Matthias is just trying to tease Jayden at this point.
I think Matthias kind of only really knows one way to drive, and that's to win. It's unusual to see him make that kind of mistake on this track, though. Again, he still ends up with a 2:14 at the end of it, so... Okay, Jayden is going to make it interesting. He's using his shortcut pick. And he's gone for Frappy Snowland shortcut. It's quite interesting because Matthias is a Frappy Snowland shortcut picker when he uses his Joker himself, usually. So... it'll be interesting to see. This is one that they're both quite well practiced on. Matthias noting that that would have been his shortcut pick, but now he can't use it unless it goes to a 4th set. Okay, players are ready. Just waiting on Jayden. Okay, they both said they're ready. So this is going to be a shortcut track here on Frappy Snowland, so what you're going to see is that the players, rather than driving forwards at the start, they're going to spin around, drive backwards to the bridge, then jump directly from the bridge onto the snow on the right, drive forward past the finish line, get stuck out of bounds. The Kitty then gets confused, puts them back on the bridge, but instead of being back behind the start of lap 1, they'll actually be at the end of lap 1. They'll then jump back from the bridge into the snow, get stuck out of bounds beyond the finish line again, and Lakito will put them back at the end of lap 2, do it one more time, and then after that it would be a case of just driving forwards to the finish line. So Matthias is now going to be entering his last lap. Jayden's just finished his first lap. That's a 28.91 for Matthias. Honestly, I think if you're going to pick any shortcut against Matthias, don't pick Frappy Snowland. It is his standard shortcut pick when he does pick shortcuts, so it is one he's well practiced in. Jaden takes 53.90. So that's 1 track to 0 to Matthias here in the third set, with Matthias leading 2 sets to 0. Oh, I have to. Sorry, so I'm having a little problems entering the times here. I didn't realise I had to put a leading 0. There we go. Okay, let's see what Matthias's choice is going to be. Be interesting to see if he uses his shortcut or not. And Matthias is using his shortcut, so we're going to Wario Stadium. And it's going to be Wario Stadium shortcuts, so we're going to see them jumping over walls a lot. So this is a lap which can actually be done in roughly 3 seconds if you do it really well. I think the world record for the 3 lap is something like 14 or 15 seconds. I don't think we'll see that level of play here. But I think Matthias will probably be aiming for something sub 30. With Jaden, I have no idea what he's like on Wario Stadium shortcut. Be interesting to see if they just go full out, full risk, or whether there's any lining up being done. So neither using a start boost. Matthias having problems getting over the second wall. Jaden's over the first wall. That's 1 lap done by Matthias. Halfway through lap 2. Hopping back over. You'll see they tend to end for the white section when going over the second wall rather than the red. Just makes it easier to get over for some reason. I'm not entirely sure what Jaden was doing there. Lining it up, going for the white, he's over. On to lap 2. Matthias getting over the first wall on lap 3, so he just needs to make it over 1 more time. And there we go. So 47.58. It's probably slower than he was hoping for. Did I say, was that 58? Matthias has reset so that he doesn't overwrite his non-shortcut times with a shortcut time. I think it was 47.58. So Jaden's looking to finish this off, and he's over with a 1:18.06. And he also resets so that the time doesn't save to the cartridge. So it's 2-0 now in the third set to Matthias, who also leads by 2 sets to 0. This is a first to 3 sets. Each set is first to 4 tracks. So it's going to be Jaden's pick. I'm fairly surprised with some of Jaden's pick. He's been going for a lot of longer tracks, which you'd think would favour Matthias, being the world #1. Okay, so Jaden's chosen Choco Mountain. It's a shorter track. It's just sub 2 minutes in total length. And there are walls to the track which you can get sucked into quite easily. So this is more along the lines of what I would have expected Jaden to be picking. So Matthias needs 2 more tracks in this set. If he does that, he'll win the match. Jaden needs to win this set to keep the match going. So Jaden needs to win 4 of the next 5 tracks. starting with Choco Mountain. Let's see if people use the shroom on this second corner. Matthias does. Jayden's going to save his. So the most optimal shroom spot is actually the very start of a lap. So on lap 1 you do that with the start boost. So you'll generally see a shroom used on the very start of lap 2 and a shroom at the very start of lap 3. The other shroom, it's really up to the players. So Matthias used his early on the second corner, and Jayden's just used his on the penultimate corner. Jayden very lucky there to not tumble off of the wall. So they both got one shroom remaining. Matthias is out to a slight lead here. This is a track where if you want to drive really fast, you almost have to drive inside the walls a little. It's very strange how some of them work, but it's very easy to get kind of sucked right into them and lose all your speed. So it can be a very risky track to try and drive really fast. But when the very best players are driving this track really fast, it's almost mesmerizing to watch. So coming through on lap 3, no major mistakes yet. Not sure what kind of pace Matthias is on for. I think for a one try you're probably looking at 157. I don't know whether he'd get any faster than that. But, Jayden going quite wide on the penultimate turns. Good hills at the end for Matthias. Gets into the 156s. Wow. So 156.85 to 200.90. So that takes it to match point now to Matthias with a 3-track advantage in the third set. So just going to say, if people like what they're seeing, want to get into Mario Kart time trialing, if you look at the bottom right of the stream, you see a little MarioKart64.com logo. Head over to the MarioKart64.com website. There's about 1,200 registered players who do time trials in this game. Matthias is number 1, and Jayden is number 16 ranked currently. There's a forum, there's a Discord. I see that people have been linking these regularly in chat. I'm just going to put it in there as well with a hashtag MK64. So there's a link to the One Try League website and bracket. This is the final race of the One Try League, but I believe it will be starting again later in the year for a second season. Links to the Discords, links to the information. I'm not sure if there's a link to the Mario Kart players page. Okay, so the final, the possibly final track has been picked by Matthias, and it's Yoshi Valley. Yoshi Valley is a very technical track. There are multiple routes to drive. The fastest route is one of the most dangerous, and contrary to what a lot of casual players think, it's not to drive over the very thin section to the left. It's actually going through an area where there's lots of spinies, like little spiny creatures which cause you to spin out if you hit them, and they wander around all over the place. So it's fairly simple to get through them on lap 1. They give you a nice clean route through. They get a lot more difficult usually around lap 3. Lap 2 they're okay. They're harder than they are on lap 1, but if you're on good pace they're not too bad. But lap 3 they can sometimes be in very nasty positioning. Okay, so Jayden's getting through the first set of spinies on lap 2.5, going around the outside of the second set. Matthias a bit more risky going on the inside. This hairpin jump here we classify as non-shortcut. It's one of two kind of shortcuts which are classed as non-shortcut. The other being the bridge on Cooper Trooper Beach, which we class as alternative intended routes. Jayden showing that the big Yoshi egg is in fact solid. And it can be really nasty at certain paces. So Matthias hits the spiny, spins out, gets stuck against the edge of the volcano. But I think Jayden really needs Matthias to fall off here to keep the match alive. Matthias has made it over. Just the egg as the final obstacle, and it's not really in the way. Jayden missing the shortcut, missing the hairpin jump. So Matthias is going to come to the line. It's quickest to finish lap 3 right out on the left of the track. And that is going to make Matthias the Season 1 Mario Kart 64 One Try League champion. So congratulations to Matthias. Jayden, I think he should finish this track. He's going to come through as the runner-up. So with a 2:17.29. So that has completed the first season of the Mario Kart 64 One Try League. Matthias has taken the final of 3 sets to love. Just going to see if any of them want to jump into a voice call. Is that awkward silence while I wait for a reply from them? So Matthias can't jump into the voice call, and neither can Jayden. So unfortunately, we won't be able to hear from either of the players on this occasion. So I think all that's really left is to say congratulations to Matthias on the win. Congratulations to Jayden on the second. Thank you for Mr. Pitt for the co-commentary. For all you viewers out there for watching. And like I say, head over to MarioKart64.com if you want to get involved. Join the Mario Kart Discord, there's links are all there. Come and have some fun. Join about 1,200 players of a community that's been going on for about 2 decades now. So that's going to be it. Thank you for streaming. Thank you, Mr. Pitt, and good night.
Yep, no problem.